What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to continue our 2023 college football predictions for the 2023 college football season. Up next, it's the Clemson Tigers, a team coming off a pretty up-and-down season last year. They went 11-3 overall in 2022. They went to the ACC Championship. They won it all last year in the ACC, but this is a Clemson team that was pretty up and down. Once again, they've been up and down now in the last couple years. Looking at this Clemson team heading into 2023, how good is Caleb Klubnik going to be at quarterback? That's a big question mark heading into this season, is definitely the offense. That's what really concerns me about this Clemson team just a little bit. I think the defense, though, is going to be pretty strong, but they do got some really talented running backs to help them out in that running game. We'll see what the passing game, though, looks like and see if Caleb Klubnik can be that next Trevor Lawrence and also that next Deshaun Watson. But let's get right to the schedule here for Clemson. And again, coming off an 11-3 season, you look at the schedule, they do play in the non-conference. They'll play Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic. They also play Notre Dame as well, and then they'll play South Carolina as well out of the SEC. That's a rival game, and that is on the road. So they do have a pretty tough non-conference schedule. The good news is they get Notre Dame at home on that schedule, and they have to almost go through the entire ACC because, remember, there are no divisions in the ACC this year, and that's what's so much different about the ACC this upcoming season. So let's get right to this schedule here, and let's also go game by game here and give you an official prediction for this Clemson team. So let's start things off here with a Monday night game on the road at Duke. This is on Labor Day weekend. It's the Sunday after Labor Day. What a big game here to start out the year for Clemson. It's not going to be an easy one here against the Blue Devils. Duke's got a lot of production coming back. This should be a really good team in the ACC this year. They're potentially to be a top 25 team as well. They were definitely a surprise team last year. This is not going to be an easy game for Clemson, but this game is really tough to call. Clemson, though, I think is the more, talented team in this game, and they also have the more talented roster. With that being said, I think the Clemson Tigers survive a close one here on the road to begin 2023 with a road win against Duke on September the 4th, and they also take care of business against Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic here. So I got Clemson starting out 2023 at 3-0. Then they'll play Florida State here on September 23rd, probably the biggest game in the ACC, probably heading into next year. Both of these teams could be sitting here undefeated by this time. This is definitely a college game day type game. Florida State's getting a lot of hype coming into 2023. I did Florida State's prediction a couple days ago. You can go back and watch their video and see what prediction I had them at. And I did pick Clemson to win this game just because it's home field advantage, and it's obviously a tough game to play at in Death Valley, and it's obviously a tough game to call. With that being said, I like Clemson in this one here in a close one against the Seminoles, and I got Clemson winning that one there on September the 23rd, and I got Clemson improving to 4-0. Syracuse on the road after that on September the 30th. Another pretty tough road game here for Clemson. It's kind of similar to the Duke game. It's not going to be an easy game. Syracuse kept the game close pretty well last year. DJ Ogale got benched, in the second half. That's where Caleb Klubnik came in. He started to play pretty well. And, that's kind of, the game that we started to learn more about Caleb Klubnik. But it was definitely the championship game in the ACC. And it was definitely the Orange Bowl game from last year. Syracuse is going to be a pretty good team this year. They're not going to be a bad team. I think this team has got, what it takes to pull off an upset. It's happened in the past, but I really don't see that, being the case this year. I think Clemson is just the more talented team. And like I said, I think it's kind of similar to the Duke game. It is a close one, and I think Clemson survives a pretty close one here at the end of the day against Syracuse here on the road. Then it's Wake Forest after that on October the 7th. Wake Forest is going to be a pretty different team this year. Sam Hartman is gone now. He's entered the transfer portal to Notre Dame. That's a huge loss for this Wake Forest team, but it's not meaning that they're not going to be a bad team, even though Wake Forest does lose him, but I think this is still a good Wake Forest team. But however, I think Clemson probably wins this one here by a couple touchdowns. They're coming off a road win against Syracuse, and with that being said, I think Clemson does get a little motivation, and I think they do win that one against Wake Forest, and I got Clemson improving to 6-0. They get a bye week before playing Miami on the road here, and a pretty good spot for a bye week if you're a Clemson player or also the Clemson coaching staff. They play back-to-back road games here against Miami and NC State. Miami's going to be a pretty good team this year. They do have a lot of talent coming back this upcoming season. Tyler Van Dyke returns at quarterback. Of course, he had some injury issues from last season. And you're kind of expecting Clemson to roll over them after Miami had a pretty tough season last year, but I really don't think that's the case. I think this will be a tough road game here against Miami. And if you look at the schedule for Clemson, they do have some tough road games this year, definitely in the ACC. And this is definitely one of those road games, once again, that could potentially be an upset alert type game. And with that being said, I think this is an upset here. I'm going to go with the Hurricanes here to knock off Clemson and give Clemson their first loss of the season. Last year, they did not play them, so that's really the thing about this schedule. So Clemson, I think they lose that one on the road at Miami, and I got them losing their first game, falling to 6-1. NC State on the road after that on October 28th. So you're coming off a loss to Miami last week, and you're kind of, in a really tough situation if you're Clemson. I mean, this is pretty much a college football playoff type game, to keep your playoff hopes alive, and obviously your ACC championship hopes alive. NC State, though, is going to lose Devin Leary at quarterback. It's kind of similar to the Wake Forest game. He's gone and transferred over to Kentucky, so that's a huge loss there. But I think this still should be a pretty good NC State team. Remember a couple years ago, the Wolfpack did pull off a huge upset a couple years ago at home against Clemson. That was in early September. This game is in the end of October, and I kind of expect Clemson to be better by this time. With that being said, I think they do get a road win here against NC State. I think they survive a close one here on the road at NC State. Now they get to the month of November. They're sitting with a record of 7-1. Notre Dame at home here after that on November the 4th. Big game here in a non-conference. This is a revenge game here for Clemson. Obviously, Notre Dame put up 35 points on this Clemson team a year ago. Notre Dame's defense only allowed 14 points, and Clemson's offense just really got worse down the stretch when they head into the month of November. But Notre Dame's going to be a really good team this year. Like I said, Sam Hartman coming in, the transfer from Wake Forest. How good will he be with that new system for the Irish? But this is a tough one to call for me. And like I said, with home field advantage, Clemson does favor that. And obviously, I think the talent does go for both of these teams. But I like Clemson in this one, in a close one here at home against the Irish and Notre Dame. And I got Clemson improving to 8-1. Georgia Tech after that on November the 11th. We've seen Clemson have some problems with Georgia Tech. Remember a couple years ago they had a problem against them here at home. Last year the game was in Atlanta, so it wasn't really that close of a game. But I think Clemson should be pretty much, the big favorite here in this one. I really don't see them struggling in this one. I got Clemson winning big here against the Yellow Jackets of Georgia Tech. North Carolina after that on November 18th. Big game here between the Tar Heels and the Tigers, a rematch from last year's ACC championship. Obviously, Drake May, the return at quarterback, is huge for this North Carolina team. They're potentially to be a top 15, top 10 type team this year. This team is getting a lot of hype as well. But Clemson is at home in this game. If this was a road game for Clemson, I would probably predict North Carolina to defeat the Tigers. But with it being a home game for Clemson, I'm going to go with the Tigers here in a close shootout-type ball game. You got two great quarterbacks going at it here between Klubnik and Drake Mays. So you got potentially some two Heisman contenders perhaps. Maybe going at it here in the later part of November. Then Clemson will end things out here on the road at South Carolina. Another revenge game here for this Clemson team. South Carolina going to be a pretty good team this year. They're getting a lot of hype. Obviously, Spencer Rattler coming back at quarterback is huge for them. And they do have home field advantage in this game. I think Clemson will be ready for this one, though. It's definitely going to be a really tough game to call. But I think, with home field advantage and obviously a rival game that can go either way, I like the Gamecocks in this one. I'm going to go with South Carolina here to knock off Clemson. Maybe it's an upset alert type game like it was last year. We did not expect South Carolina to defeat Clemson last year on the road. That was definitely the biggest win I think South Carolina had last year on the road at Clemson. And I got Clemson finishing with a record of 10-2 in 2023. This is a pretty tough schedule when you look at it. I mean, they have to play Duke here to begin the season, and then obviously tough road games against Syracuse, Miami, and NC State. Don't sleep on that NC State game. There's a possible chance that Clemson can go 9-3, possibly 11-1 perhaps is possible, but I like 10-2 here for Clemson in 2023. That's my overall prediction for the Clemson Tigers. Let me guys know what you think about this Clemson team. What do you think their record will be in 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.